So, welcome back. It's actually going to be lesson 3.3 despite what this says, but I'm using the same drawing because I think it'll help us. Lesson 3.3 is all about porosity and permeability. And when we talk about porosity and permeability, we're talking about how much liquid or water flow we're going to have at a given point. So I kept this drawing because we see a lot of water movement and a lot of water flow here. We already talked about what runoff is, which is the movement of water across Earth's surface. And in our previous unit, we actually discussed what allows water to move more freely when we discussed erosion. So just to give a quick recap, we're going to have a lot more runoff when we have a lot of rain. That happens frequently, so not just a ton of rain today, but a ton of rain today, maybe tomorrow and a couple more times as well. If we have steeper land, so bigger slopes, we're going to have an increased amount of runoff as well. It's going to have more velocity, more movement. And if there's nothing in the way, so do we have plants, do we have vegetation, things like that. One add-on I'm going to make is that if we have an area like we do here, where it's not very developed, so not a lot of concrete, we're not going to get as much runoff as if we're in a city, because the concrete isn't going to absorb water in the same way. So concrete and asphalt, water is going to slide along it, but here we're going to see that infiltration we talked about of water absorbing into the ground. So to talk more about porosity, we want to think of like pores. So as if we have a filter or a colander, we have these spaces beneath the ground in which water can move down and move through. Porosity is how much empty space there is. So if we have big open pores, this space here, you can see a lot more water capable of moving through that. But if we close it up, make it smaller, less water is going to go through. So more porosity, more movement of water. The other idea that we need to talk about is permeability. And what permeability is whether or not something can push through the water, or push through the surface. So in terms of water, if we're not just looking at pores, we're going to look at what surface they're going through. So water's not going to go straight through concrete or asphalt. It just can't. However, if we have something like sand, or if we have something like grass, or certain types of rocks, it's going to be permeable, and that on a molecular level we can see water go through those pieces and push, instead of on concrete or asphalt it's going to just hit it and stop. It's much like the Red Rover idea. So if we're playing Red Rover and we send someone over, someone holding someone else's arm is going to block them. They're impermeable to that person. But if they let go, we're going to see them permeable, and water's going to move through. So porosity, how much open space there is that water can move through. Permeability is the ability of some surface or substance to let water through. Now the final idea that we have to talk about is how we as humans are going to block and utilize water in its best sense. So yes, we did discuss in lesson 3.2 about, okay, we use wells to extract water, but let's say we have an accumulation of water. So a spring, for instance. We're going to use what we call a dam to blockade that water and force buildup on this side. That allows us to control where the water is, and as well as use that as hydroelectric power. So we can push this collected water through turbines that rotate and create electricity, or we can boil it and use steam energy. Either way, controlling the movement of water is something that we are going to continue to discuss, and how we can change how much water is flowing in a given space.